Welcome to our East-West celebration of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, with a spin. The East is not the Far East, but rather New York, and the West is California. This video is a collaboration between the courts of New York and California in honor of AAPI Heritage Month, allyship, mutual support, and friendship. How did this bicoastal collaboration come to pass? It started over 30 years ago. As an attorney, I volunteered to become a court-appointed child advocate for a nationally renowned program. Through this program, I met Fatima and her sister when they were 12 and 11 years old. And over the years, a deep and lasting bond grew through trust, support, and love. After becoming an attorney in Rochester, New York, Fatima expressed an interest in joining the bench. I invited her to California to attend a judicial conference where she met many bench officers of color, including California Chief Justice Tani Kantil-Sakaue, who is the first AAPI Chief Justice of the California Supreme Court. We eventually had a fundraiser for Fatima in California. The event was extremely well attended since lawyers, elected officials, and judges were excited to support a judicial candidate who had been a foster child in our county, Santa Clara County. Fatima ran an election for her seat on the family court bench in Monroe County and won. In winning, she made history as the first Black female judge on her court. Comparing notes as judges, we learned that we are both the first on our court. Both our courts use similar technology platforms for remote hearings and meetings, and we are both committed to diversity and inclusion. There were other similarities and other differences.
For instance, California has a population of 40 million people, according to the US Census.
New York State has a population of approximately 30.22 million people.
California's AAPI population is 14.8% of its people.
The AAPI population in New York State comprises of approximately 9% of its people.
Santa Clara County has a population of just under 2 million people.
Monroe County has a population of approximately 760,000 people.
California has approximately 1,600 judges.
New York State has approximately 1,227 judges, and 3% of those judges are AAPI.
Santa Clara County Superior Court has 79 judges and 5 commissioners.
Monroe County has 31 Superior Court judges.
Santa Clara County Superior Courts have 14 AAPI judges, of which I'm the newest.
And Monroe County has 1 AAPI judge, me.
And you'll be hearing from some of the judges on our court. Among them is our colleague, Judge Audra Ibarra, who is the current president of the California Asian Pacific American Judges Association, which has over 100 active members.
We asked some of our colleagues in New York and California to answer some questions and share their stories, and we think that you will find their responses inspiring.
You will also hear from Justice Karen Fujisaki, the First District Court of Appeal, and Judge Lucy Coe, formerly of our court and newly sworn to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal.
You're going to meet 5 AAPI judges in New York State, all of whom are highly accomplished and trailblazers in many ways, including retired Judge Randall Eng, who served on the Appellate Division in the Second Department and was the first AAPI judge in New York State in 1983.
My immigration story begins with my mother's escape from North Korea in the spring of 1946 when she was about 11 years old. She walked for 2 weeks, mostly through mountains, with her uncles and her male cousins who were in their 20s. During this trip, she got yellow fever, so the uncles took turns carrying her on their backs. My father was born in South Korea and fought the communists in the Korean War.
My father, who was a World War II veteran in the United States 8th Air Force, came to this country at the age of 15 in 1937. My parents met in China, and I was born in China in 1947. However, I was brought to the United States at the age of 6 months. My upbringing was in New York City, particularly in Queens, where I attended public schools and then went on to the State University of New York at Buffalo and St. John's University School of Law.
So I originate from Kashmir, which is the disputed territory between India and Pakistan, and my grandparents were born there, and they immigrated to East Africa, and then they immigrated to England in the United Kingdom. I was born and brought up in England, and after I got married, we emigrated to the United States, so I've been here for about 30 years. So I have a very different background.
Both of my parents are from the beautiful island of Guam, and as many of you know, Guam is a United States territory. Coming out of high school, my father enlisted in the military, and by the time I was born, we were stationed in Germany. So I've spent my life growing up at different military bases throughout the United States, but primarily my schooling and education is here in California.
So my parents are Chinese immigrants, and they came to this country in 1969 and 1970, and they came to Queens. I was born in Queens. When my mom came to this country, she had $100 in her pocket, and that's it, from her dad. And when my dad came to New York City, he had to take a job at a grocery store, working $18 an hour.
My family's immigration story dates back to pre-World War II. On my mother's side, my grandparents were born and raised in Japan, and they came to the U.S. separately. My mother was born and raised in San Francisco. On my father's side, my grandfather was born in Japan, but my grandmother was born in the States. And my father was born and raised in Los Angeles. During World War II, my mother's family was forced to evacuate to the Japanese internment center in Topaz, Utah. And my father's family was incarcerated at Manzanar in the Eastern Sierras in California. I was born and raised in Los Angeles.
My parents came to the United States from China, unbelievably, during World War II in the late 30s, early 40s. They came separately to pursue graduate studies. They met at the University of Chicago, and but for the fact that they had my oldest brother, and had married and had my oldest brother, they would have had to return to what had become communist China. They struggled in the beginning because they were effectively stranded and completely cut off from their families, whom they never saw again after that. But they persevered and eventually were able to get jobs. My father in the IRS, where he was for over 30 years, and my mother as a professor in the City College system in Chicago. And they raised my brothers and I in Skokie, a suburb of Chicago.
There were no lawyers, let alone judges in my family, so I was extremely fortunate that when I first became a lawyer in Santa Clara County, I became acquainted with the late Takaichi, a former assistant public defender and Superior Court judge. Judge Takei was always supporting and encouraging me, which was essential at a time when there were few women and even fewer Asian Americans who were practicing law in this county or anywhere in California.
I was the first AAPI judge in New York State history. There were no predecessors. I was encouraged by others because of my courtroom experience as an assistant district attorney to apply for a seat on the New York City Criminal Court.
I was encouraged by friends to apply, and that's how it works in New York, to become a district court judge. And I was urged by them because the word was that President Obama and our local senators wanted to diversify our bench, both in terms of ethnicity and also in terms of sexual orientation. So the timing was perfect, and that really is what propelled me to do this.
What motivated me to become a judge was that I wanted to use my trial experience as a prosecutor here in Santa Clara County, my outreach with the community, and I wanted to help increase the diversity on our local bench.
So my family background makes me want to work as hard as possible to advance justice, to advance fairness, to uphold the rule of law, and to show the world the benefits of a fair and independent judiciary.
On the bench, my cultural and ethnic background certainly informs my work. That the courtroom and our legal system could be intimidating for someone who was not born in the United States or who did not grow up in the United States is something that I can relate to. I can understand that perhaps somebody of Asian background, South Asian background, or Pacific Islander background may not speak up in the courtroom, may speak quietly, or may not make eye contact when they're being questioned during jury selection. At the end of the day, however, I would like to think that seeing me on the bench is perhaps comforting to these litigants and prospective jurors.
Being an immigrant and being, growing up in humble ways, being poor, gave you a certain desire to hustle. And that's where I think my cultural and ethnic background plays a lot in my everyday interactions, whether I was on the bench or personally.
I think it's important when you are a judicial officer that you see the person before you and hear their story. It doesn't matter what color they are, what their culture is, what they're wearing. You want to hear their story. What is their claim about? What is their evidence? Not what they look like, how they speak, or what they're wearing.
I know firsthand how minorities suffer little slights and indignities intentionally and unintentionally almost daily. There's no room for that in our society. My goal is to make sure that never happens in my courtroom or any court that I'm a part of by treating everyone with respect, dignity, and empathy.
The concept of advancing leaders through collaboration, to me, means forming alliances, because I think we are strongest when we recognize the commonalities we have as people in different communities, especially diverse communities, who've experienced much of the same challenges and obstacles. And so I think it's very important to form alliances across the diverse communities that we represent or that exist, and also forming alliances with the majority communities. Certainly in the gay movement, these alliances exist and have been very successful, I think, in really propelling almost exponentially acceptance of the LGBT community and advancement in terms of equality and the recognition that equality is important for every community in our diverse nation.
To me, advancing leaders through collaboration means nurturing the next generation of leaders by finding common ground and working together to address the needs of our country and our communities.
We are a small but vibrant community, and we're earning our place in society. We get to advance and we achieve our success through the help of others. And that's what collaboration to me means. It means working with others to do well and to get our foothold.
Individual leaders can certainly advance the goals of their associations, but so much more can be achieved by working together with leaders of varied organizations. You get diversity of ideas and thoughts to advance everyone's interests.
Advancing leadership through collaboration, for me, means engaging with our Santa Clara County Bar Association, our local school districts, and our local community-based organizations like the Japanese American Museum of San Jose.
Collaboration is certainly something that is essential to advancing leaders, and that would be the last step, I think, in bringing AAPI lawyers and judges into the mainstream as a welcomed member of the legal community.
We need lawyers and judges who can inspire and join with others in the development of ideas and strategies to improve our system of justice and its accessibility by underserved communities. Collaboration within the AAPI community, as well as collaboration between the AAPI community and other legal communities, is critical for developing, supporting, and placing leaders in positions where they can move the needle towards equity and justice.
Thank you for joining us today for this bicoastal celebration of AAPI Heritage Month. In some ways, I feel that my story stems from my experience in the Santa Clara County courts and legal community. I remember watching Erica in court and hoping to one day have a hand in ensuring justice for people who need to come to court. And now I'm embedded in the Monroe County Family Court. In watching the videos, I am struck by the similarities we share as bench officers in our commitment to service and our devotion to the rule of law and the pursuit of fairness. These themes unite us despite the physical distance between our courts and our states. This collaboration is a testament to what can come from friendship and allyship. We are grateful to work with you. Best wishes to you for AAPI Heritage Month, and thank you for watching.